Dr. Michele Ross of the Impact Network. Dr. Michele Ross is a neuroscientist bringing her knowledge to the cannabis industry. Welcome to Cannabis Economy. I'm your host, Seth Adler. Check us out on Twitter at Can Economy. It's 2 N's in the word economy. On Facebook with the same handle. Michele has had some battles along the way, including a raid of her home, which she gets into. Speaking of home, for reality TV fans, you might remember Michele from Big Brother Season 2. For the record, I don't. Having said that, she really knew what she was getting herself into and has used that show as a platform for doing good. Happy to be on the Cannabis Radio Network and the Sexpot Comedy Co-op. Dr. Michele Ross. Yes. Okay, so we are here with Dr. Michele Ross, and you've got your doctorate in neuroscience, and you were telling me some people don't believe you because you've got this young-looking visage, right?
Exactly. Usually people think I'm pranking them when I say I'm Dr. Ross. They're like, oh, what year of medical school are you? Or they even ask, if I'm a college student.
Right.
I'm like, no, actually, I got my PhD in neuroscience in 2008, which is 8 years ago.
Right.
So,
It's been a while.
Just a little bit, right? People actually ask if I want to work in their lab underneath them. I'm like, no, honey,
No.
I'm way above you.
So it's not that you're going for your master's. You have your doctorate. You've had it for 8 years. What institution granted you said?
Well, it's actually a mouthful to say.
Yeah.
So, University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center at Dallas.
That is quite a mouthful.
Yeah, so it's not one of the most, name recognized institutions out there, but it actually had the most amount of Nobel Prize winners out of any institution at the time. I'm not sure if they still hold the record now, but it was an amazing, amazing place to learn.
So name some names for us that we might know.
Okay, so we have Thomas Sudoff, who won the Nobel Prize in Medicine about 3 years ago, if I'm correct, in synaptic plasticity. So he was in the neuroscience department.
Of course, I know what that is, but for anybody that doesn't.
So basically, synaptic plasticity is sort of the process of how neurons change and basically communicate signals. It's how we learn, right? So these are all really important processes. If we don't understand how brain cells talk to each other, we can't understand how any learning or other process happens in the brain.
So he cracked that code a little bit.
Oh my goodness, yeah. If you read textbooks, I mean, all the professors I learned from are, in all of your neurology textbooks, neuroscience textbooks, pharmacology, you name it. And the funny part is that when you have several Nobel Prize winners, they all attract their Nobel Prize winner buddies. So I got to eat lunch and host actually a lot of these Nobel Prize winners and to pick their brains and be inspired. It's just like sort of like eating lunch with the Dalai Lama. You're just like, whoa.
Right. The Dalai Lama of this and the Dalai Lama of that.
Yeah.
As far as quotable quotes, not necessarily in science, but kind of life lessons from some of these Nobel Prize winners. Were there any that you remember?
Well, I don't have any direct quotes, but it's sort of just, navigate your own path through things. A lot of people will tell you you're crazy. And the more people tell you that you're crazy and you shouldn't do it, you definitely should go do that because you're going to be the only damn person studying that and really connecting the dots. And if you have conviction and if you have intelligence, you're going to find the answers that you're looking for.
Well, but isn't that science? Meaning, math is kind of specific and direct, and there is one answer for most math. But for science, it's, I have this theory. Let me prove it.
Well, the thing with science is that most people study sort of what's funded or, try to go, what's easiest. And there's actually right now not a lot of motivation to do high risk, big results, big reward type of science, just due to the nature of government funding. But really that sort of constricts, the treatments that we're able to make, the answers that, we can come up with and solutions. So really we need those people to take the big risks and do the jumps, just go out far outside the box and go, create a whole new field or, a whole new treatment branch.
What give us an example of something that was mind-bending to you? Someone that just kind of created that whole new area that had not been opened before.
Well, obviously, with my passion for cannabinoid medicine, I would say Dr. Meshulam up in Israel, with his discovery of cannabinoid receptors and the whole system and how THC works and everything. I mean, he's the godfather of cannabinoid medicine. So he's a super inspiration to me and so many other researchers in this field.
Have you ever had the opportunity to cross paths in any way?
You know what? I have not met him yet, but hopefully I will be meeting him in April at the CanAmed conference. So, I'll have my little fangirl moment then.
There you go. That's basically your Justin Bieber, I guess.
Yeah, I would say that. You know what? I don't want to insult him. I feel like he's way cooler than Justin Bieber.
Oh no! All I'm doing is equating the fandom. So if you take the Uber fan, from one and relate it to you as the Uber fan for Dr. Michele.
Yeah, I know.
Then yeah. But you're probably right. It's probably a stretched analogy at best. All right, so that's great. We have proven the fact that you are a neuroscientist, proven the fact that you've got your PhD, proven the fact that it's been a while. Let's kind of go back. When did you first know that you wanted to be a scientist?
Oh my goodness. So it's so funny. I went through some of my childhood belongings when I had moved out of my parents' house, and I had this box and it had this like Lisa Frank diary with this unicorn cover and everything. It was from second grade, and I opened it up and it lists some of the things at the time, like what's your favorite color, like what boy do you like, and it was funny. It said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I look at it and it actually says brain scientist and movie star.
Okay.
So apparently from second grade on, I knew that I wanted to crack open brains. So the joke I have is I was obsessed with brains, and my mom thought I was really weird. So it was like there was only several ways I could go. I could be, a brain scientist or brain doctor. Mm-hmm. I could be a serial killer, or I could be a zombie.
Right. Or like a Frankenstein type situation right there in the middle. Either Dr. Frankenstein or Frankenstein. So there is that option. I'm glad that we didn't go with mass killer, did you say? Or?
Yeah, serial killer.
Serial killer, yeah.
I just want your brain so much. I have to have it.
Yeah. And I'm glad that we didn't go with zombie, let the Walking Dead and whatever take care of that, right?
Yeah, maybe 50 years in the future after we all, die of some crazy virus, but not yet.
Right. No, and we'll talk to you about that, I guess, 25 years from now.
Yes.
How close we're getting to it. But so that was your mindset when you were 7. What was the next kind of tentpole event in you becoming a scientist?
Okay. So I was actually inspired to study drug addiction because of my environment. I actually grew up in New Jersey in front of a house which was basically a drug den. Unfortunately, I got to see a lot of my fellow students go to this house basically to get drugs and see what happened to them and how it changed their life for the negative. And it really gave me an empathetic understanding of what is a drug addict, right? They are human beings. It is a disease. It's your friend, it's your neighbor, it's your coworker. It's not a monster, it's not a criminal. I mean, these are real people. And it sort of laid the basis for, okay, I want to help people. How can I help them? Can I help them as a doctor? Can I help them as a scientist? When I searched around, I actually found out that there really aren't good treatments for drug addiction. I mean, go to rehab, come out, go to jail. I mean, those are your options. For a lot of people, they struggle with alcoholism, they struggle with whatever addiction it is, whether it's heroin or methamphetamines, cocaine, etc. I mean, these are real problems without solutions. And so I felt I could, actually add to the healthcare industry and actually help people with addiction better by being a scientist and finding out what causes addiction and how to treat it better than I could as an actual doctor.
Interesting. So you kind of got that arm's length empathy from kind of looking through your window and seeing this. You thought to yourself, I can help these people if I can just figure out what's making them walk into that house.
Exactly. And the obsession with the brain, you can see where I'm going, okay, what makes people tick? What makes people do what they do? And then growing up and, no longer being a child and saying, okay, sometimes people do not great things. What causes them to do that? And how maybe can we change that behavior and heal them? And that's really what drove me to start studying the effects of drugs on the brain.
Okay. So you're kind of into that. High school was in New Jersey or no?
Yeah, I was in New Jersey the whole time.
And then where'd you go to school?
So I went to Boston College.
Okay.
I got a
Go
wicked awesome
Eagles,
Boston.
I guess, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Eagles. So I ended up studying drug addiction. Actually, my first little lab experience is up there. I worked studying basically rodent self-administration, so learning little surgeries to get rats to go press little buttons in an operant box and infuse cocaine themselves, which is
Infused
really
cocaine.
Yes, so we studied cocaine self-administration. What's cool about that is, there's different models that you can use to study drug addiction. And you want one that models, the human experience, which is voluntary administration. Other ways where people just, inject cocaine or other drugs via needles, that's not how people are doing it. Surprise, you just gave me drugs,
Right.
without wanting to have those drugs. I mean, humans go and they say, hit me,
Right.
The
lack of choice, right?
So having the choice is really important when you have a valid model of drug addiction. So
Right.
it was sort of fun to play doctor. I got to, do little brain surgeries and little, all sorts of different surgeries on animals.
As an undergrad.
As an undergrad.
Wait,
yeah.
so then what we understand, us regular humans,
Yeah.
is that brain surgery is difficult. So how did you know how to do that as an undergrad?
I was really just lucky to have the best mentors. A lot of people don't have those experiences when they're undergrads, but it's about reaching out to labs and your professors and saying, hey, I'll do this for free. Or I actually had a research fellowship, so they paid me to go do that. I just lucked out real big time there. But I did imaging studies. I did MRI work with monkeys and drug addiction. I got to basically do what I do all over, in great institutions.
So brain surgery on the rats, MRIs on the monkeys. Talk about we're using cocaine as the drug of choice for monkeys as well?
In that lab, yes. They also did a little ecstasy too. I mean, they're party monkeys.
Well, let's talk, since we already talked about cocaine with rats, let's talk about ecstasy with
Yeah.
monkeys. This is a ridiculous conversation, Dr.
Yeah,
Ross.
I mean, and actually it's one that I don't really like having to, because I'm not actually a big fan of animal research.
Right.
Especially when you can study it in humans, right?
Right.
So for me, I'm not someone that's comfortable in harming animals in any way, and for me, just the disconnect between, hey, let's put monkeys that obviously have a higher level of thinking. I'm not a fan of that kind of research. Anytime you can use humans, let's do that.
Right. And well, in fairness to you, this is 10, 15 years ago, right? So this
Exactly.
is actually a while back.
Yes.
But what did you take away from, we kind of talked about pressing the buzzer with the rats. What was the takeaway with the monkeys? And then we'll leave that.
Yeah. So I was only there a short period of time, about maybe 3-4 months doing that research. So it was all about just brain imagery and what area of the brain is most active when animals are self-administering, and we actually gave them the drug while they're in the MRI scanner. So it was more about setting up a protocol and saying, how do we make animals not stressed out in an MRI machine, because humans are, and they understand they're in an MRI machine. If you're a monkey, you're like, where's my jungle? What am I doing in this loud, horrible, obnoxious machine? So just getting them to relax for a couple of days and acclimate to that environment was just hard enough.
My brother-in-law is a neuroscientist.
Oh, okay.
He put me through the MRI to do some imaging, just as a kind of a test.
Oh, so you have a printout of what your brain looks like?
I do, as a matter of fact.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. And what was so sad is that my dad, who is left-handed, you'll know, was not able to be scanned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you don't. So that's what he says. Maybe that was
for
just
his
his lab.
study?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just because he's left-handed.
Yo, now what kind of neuroscience does your brother do?
Well, this isn't about him. This is about you, Dr. Ross.
Well, we'll
can't-
have to talk
yeah,
off.
Exactly.
Sorry, I just got all super
So you were
nerdy
there
out.
for only a couple months at BC? Is that what you're saying, or
Oh no!
or just
so
in that lab?
the monkey research was during a summer fellowship.
Okay. Okay. All right. And then, did you graduate from BC? Did degree from there? Or?
Yes,
Right.
I graduated in 2004,
Yeah.
and then I went straight into the University of Texas to do my
Okay, so
PhD.
straight down.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. So you've got your undergraduate degree in what did you have it in?
So the behavioral neuroscience program didn't get accredited in time. I think it got accredited like 1 month after I left. So I just actually left with a degree in psychology instead of behavioral neuroscience.
That's very
But I did.
frustrating.
You know what? At the end of the day, nobody looks at like your BA, right? If you've got the higher, degree, that's all that matters.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So you're lunching with, with Nobel Prize winners. What are you studying? What were the studies?
Okay, so I did mostly, again, that rodent self-administration model to look at causes of addiction, right? The risk factors, whether, is it genetic? Is it stress? Is it, not having certain cell types in your brain? And also what these different cells do, how they respond to drug use, right? Mm-hmm. So if you take cocaine, if you take heroin, if you take Adderall, which, by the way, is an amphetamine and actually decreases the number of brain cells you have, even though it's prescribed to children.
Of course.
We looked at all the effects of these different drugs of abuse or prescription drugs on neurogenesis, which is the birth of new brain cells.
Mm-hmm.
So lots and lots of different work. Some of our work was funded by NASA. Some of our work was funded by the National Institute on Drug Abuse, which is called NIDA.
Right. Well, let's stop there.
Yeah.
Let's get into
the big
NIDA.
Bad.
Right. So we've spoken with Dr. Sue Sisley.
Yes.
So she's got her frustrations with NIDA.
Oh yeah.
What was it like working with NIDA from your perspective?
Well, as long as you're studying the negative effects of drugs on the brain, I mean, it's all great.
Then they're okay.
You can get all the funding in the world you want to show, okay, heroin is bad for the brain, cocaine is bad for the brain, this drug is bad for the brain, cannabinoids are bad for the brain. The second you sort of go outside the box and you start to learn things like, hey, maybe cannabinoids are actually growing brain cells,
right,
and you publish on that, you start to get a little resistance,
Isn't that legislating from the bench, as they say?
Well, I mean, if you look at the whole purpose of NIDA, unfortunately, NIDA is really the only institution that's allowing people to either do clinical research with cannabis or directing sort of how cannabis and the endocannabinoid system is studied. Really, their whole purpose is drug abuse. There is no, they don't fund medical use of heroin. They don't fund medical use of cocaine. Why would they fund medical use of cannabinoids? And so all their research really until very, very recently has been on the harmful effects of the cannabinoids. So they go, you have to have done your study wrong, et cetera, do it again, that kind of stuff. So in the end, we ended up, we published on cannabinoids and neurogenesis back in 2006. It's easier just to go with what's accepted and what will get funded. So, we went more with the cocaine research later on. But I kept attending lectures and hearing about, okay, the cannabinoid system and here, the potential therapeutic effects of it, but also with these other studies that were going, hey, it causes schizophrenia, it causes this. And there was just such a mismatch of what was going on in different countries. It seemed like certain countries were putting out, horrible anti-cannabis research that wasn't, I can never say that word.
Right.
It wasn't, done correctly, I would say, or up to the standards that we accept as valid research here.
Methodically? No.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm like, the neuroscientist that can't say big words.
No, but you know how to use them. That's the key.
Yes. So basically, I was always just thinking about the endocannabinoid system. Originally, actually, I wanted to go do my postdoctoral research, which is, the time of research that you do after you get your PhD. Of course, getting a PhD is not enough. You just have to keep going and going,
Postdoc and
yes,
this and that. Right.
Exactly. So I wanted to go study with Daniel Piamelli, who's sort of like the Michele of the United States. He's worked with CBD and schizophrenia, discovered anandamide, which is a cannabinoid in dark chocolate. He's done a lot of fantastic work. He's at UC Irvine, but I was married to someone who did not want me to go down there and actually wanted to be a comedian in Hollywood. So
I see.
I ended up filing for divorce and ended up at Caltech instead. I'm going, damn it, I should have left earlier, so I'd be rocking out, to cannabinoid research up in UC Irvine. But
let me stop you for a second, though, because you mentioned the fact that it was interesting to see how different countries treated the research. Get into that a little bit more. What do you mean? What did you find? What did you see?
Okay. So a lot of the research actually that was actually focused on, hey, schizophrenia and cannabis causes schizophrenia, right? That was actually a huge thing for me because mental illness runs in my family. So I'm going, oh my goodness, even me personally, I'm never going to try cannabis, because it's going to make me crazy, and nobody wants that, right? But it turned out most of that research has all come from one country and one source, right? It's the UK, I think, is really focused on getting that out. And if you look at their policy, right, the UK is not pro-cannabis whatsoever. So it doesn't, it's not confusing to see why a country that does not want cannabis to be legalized is supporting research or supporting researchers that continually put out research that is skewed towards, hey, it's harmful. I mean, honestly, you can collect data, and depending on how you manipulate it, right? It's like how you present those graphs or how you what data you leave out. You can manipulate almost anything in a harmful, not completely objective way. And I think that's what some of these studies were, presented as, or the media picked it up that way, right? Sometimes there's actually...
Or the governing bodies, like NIDA. I mean, it all kind of makes sense.
Right? There's some studies, right? They could show, for example, this is really important with the cannabis and pregnancy studies, right? All these studies were coming out saying, cannabis is not safe during pregnancy. But, they would only report one measure, and it's like, maybe the 50 other measures that they study, there's actually an improvement. And the most recent study on cannabis and pregnancy, they actually showed that there's a 50% increase in vision capability when the mom uses cannabis during pregnancy.
Of the child?
Yes. Yeah, so their visual acuity was actually better.
Increased.
So, yeah, exactly. That's not a bad side effect. You're like, you have superhuman vision.
Yeah,
awesome.
better vision. Okay.
So, it's all about the data that you share. And unfortunately, up until now, there hasn't been open, open data in scientific research. A researcher hasn't been asked to show every single data point that they have to show, whether they're hiding anything. And now we're moving towards that because it's easy to host, big amounts of information through cloud sharing and everything. So
it does feel like it is opening up to me, and I'm glad to hear that it feels like it's opening up to you.
Yes.
You mentioned something, and if you want me to stop, I will.
Okay.
But you mentioned mental illness in your family, and I realized in myself, whereas usually I would just say to the person, if someone's mother had cancer, I would talk about it. If someone's, someone had Crohn's, I would talk about it. An MS, I would talk about it. I realized I shut myself down from asking you about mental illness. I want to actually ask you about that.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like there's this weird, we shouldn't talk about it.
Yeah.
I think maybe we should talk about it generally and specifically now. Yeah. Do you have thoughts on first generally, and then we can get into the specifics?
No, I think there's a huge stigma into talking about mental illness, right? The thing is that about 20 to 25% of us will experience some form of mental illness in our life, whether it's temporary depression or a significant illness like schizophrenia or depression or anxiety disorder. And I think actually due to our Western lifestyle, we're actually seeing more and more. So this is going to become more commonplace. And I think when you have stigma, you also have people that aren't going to get the diagnosis, right? So it's not on record. But the reality is every single one of us knows someone that is struggling. And it's a disease. These are diseases of brain chemistry, right? Some of these diseases are rooted in endocannabinoid deficiency and can be helped and alleviated by cannabis treatment. So, there should be no shame in talking about this, but there is. Because people are worried, hey, if I say I have depression, maybe I'll get fired from my job, or, people won't see me as a valid, contributor, or there's just so much stigma to it, and unfortunately.
So the stigma. So you mentioned kind of job.
Yeah.
It doesn't kind of end there, does it? Where do you think that was born? Is it, why is there that stigma?
I think there's still the thought that a lot of mental illness is really a lack of willpower, things like that. For example, with
You can
addiction.
control it. Why don't you just get over it?
Exactly. People don't realize that things like addiction are based in genetic vulnerability, brain chemistry alterations. I mean, some of us will have the same darn experiences, right? We could have two soldiers go to war, right? They have pretty much almost, the same background. One of them will develop PTSD and the other won't, and they had exactly the same horrible experience, right? And it comes down to what our genetic code is. That's like our resilience factor, right? It has nothing to do with how strong you are, how manly you are, how intelligent you are. I mean, there's just, unfortunately, some of us are, have different genetic, strengths, and for some of us, coping with tragedy or hardship is not one of them, and that's not something that we should take personally or view as you're a bad person. It's just
or lesser than.
Yeah, exactly. Some of us are actually just born with higher stress levels, right? And so we have higher levels of corticosterone, and that makes us unable to deal with things, or hypersensitive, right? And that, again, that's just a hormone imbalance, right? That's just who we are. And just like, we deal with things like, hey, you need more vitamin D, take supplements. Some of us need, supplements or treatments to lower those stress levels. It is not a judgment call.
Yeah. You also mentioned that the 21st century way of life is, I don't think, did you use the word metastasizing?
No.
But it is making it worse.
Oh my goodness.
Why and how?
Well, first of all, we really have moved away from a healthy lifestyle, right? We're all about convenience here. We have, the Western junk food diet. We're all strung out on caffeine and soda and sugar. And then we also aren't mindful of our emotional and mental health, right? Most of us are not sleeping enough, which causes our body to actually be stressed out and actually gain weight, even if we're not doing anything additional with our diet. We're not taking time to exercise. We're all cubicle, rats. None of us go outside. Vitamin D. We're literally locked in our homes most of the day. We don't take time to play. We don't take time to laugh or have fun. We're just stressed out, angry, and we're just not living naturally like humans are supposed to be living. So all these, basically all the stress is what's causing disease, and also inflammation too. Everything that we do, from breathing in polluted air to our bad diet, to some of the toxic medications we're taking. I mean, our bodies are just sick inside, and I mean, how can you deal with anything that life's throwing at you when your brain is sick? I mean, it's an organ too, just like the rest of your body.
You mentioned a litany of things there.
Oh yeah.
And did not bring up my phone. What about, because I was expecting you to bring up, everybody's got a phone in their hand 90% of the time. That can't be healthy mentally.
Yeah, well, it's funny. So every time you receive a text message or you play a little game, you hear a little noise, right? That actually makes your brain release dopamine. And that's
Pavlov, right?
Sorry?
That's Pavlovian.
Yeah, well, a little bit.
Well, I mean, I am when I feel that I get a text message because it buzzed.
Yeah, you're
like,
anticipating
boom.
it.
It's ridiculous.
But
that's not what your point was. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You basically, your brain's squirting out all this little dopamine. So basically, you become addicted to the stimulation that's coming from your phone. So you get people that actually cannot get away from their phone. They cannot withdraw, they suffer withdrawals when their phone, God forbid, is lost for a day or something. And so you have people that are hyper stimulated all the time, and they actually don't know how to relax. They don't know how to unwind. They don't know how to connect with people in real life. If you're always interacting with your phone, right? I mean, people are actually having problems socializing and being normal humans. I mean, this is not what we're made to do, to interact with a screen all day. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting how our brains are developing. Here we are as adults, right? We didn't have iPhones when we were kids, but it's interesting to see how this next generation is going to be affected by this. Are we going to have more sensory processing disorders, sort of like ADHD, in the future? Or are we going to have people that are actually enhanced by this and able to, comprehend and compute, crazy amounts of data now that they have more synapses? Only time will tell. We need that research, but we're definitely remodeling our brains with this.
You do feel that, you do think that, you do see that.
Yes, indeed. And I mean, I can see it myself. I feel like sometimes more distracted, but also more capable. So you always have a little, a double-edged sword whenever you deal with something new.
Sure, you have a double-edged sword whenever you deal with anything, I think, is how the story goes. All right, so we have this very intelligent person. You're demonstrating your intelligence. You're demonstrating the fact that you're a valuable piece of our society, of our community. You're demonstrating that we should hear more from you. Is that why you decided, what the hell with the reality show? What is that about? I'm sitting across from you. We're having a wonderful conversation. I know this other fact. What the hell happened there? What is that about?
Well, it's funny. So actually, I probably would never have done a reality show except for the fact that I was actually getting divorced. And so...
All right, so we're back in kind of Southern California.
Divorce, yeah.
Right.
No, it's funny. So I was about to go through a divorce, and it was just funny. One of the things where my now ex-husband was going, we need to get more money. You don't make enough as a scientist, because we don't make a lot as a scientist.
Right.
And he's like,
you were talking about funding and grants.
Exactly.
And,
So as a postdoc, you may only make like $38,000 or something, which, if you live in Southern California is nothing. You're pretty much like almost, homeless at that rate, right? Because apartments there are just through the roof. So anyways, so he's like, you should apply for a TV show. Everyone does it here. And I was like, ha ha ha. Okay, so I literally pull up Craigslist. I go search for something, and like literally the first thing that pops up is looking for like nerdy person, and it was just funny. It was like the most vaguest Craigslist description ever. And so I sent in this most ridiculous email to them, going like all cocky. I'm like, I chop off rat heads for a living. I'm like this badass from New Jersey, like totally not who I am at all. Just for the hell of it. And I get a phone call literally 2 hours later and find out it was for Big Brother, which was the only reality TV show I'd ever watched in my life. And I watched it with my family. So I go, holy crap, I'm in. Let's see where this, this train goes.
Oh my goodness. Now, if I remember correctly, your diary entry from second grade said brain scientist and movie star. So I get that we're trying to kind of push this off on the old ex, but how much of this was,
Okay.
when he suggested it, were you like, ooh?
No, actually, I was pissed off that he did. So I know he was trying to apply for stuff. So and he was a comedian. So I was like, I'll do it better and I'll get on. So I did, which was awful. But actually, I had been acting in High School Musicals and stuff like that.
So there was that.
Yeah. So I always liked the spotlight. So for me, when I found out it was an opportunity to actually be I was actually the first female scientist on reality television. So I was going, okay, what can I do with this? One, besides being on TV is awesome, but at the same time, it actually puts women scientists out there. Like literally.
This is a thing. Look, see,
exactly.
I'm one of them.
I'm a real person, right? I'm not a caricature. I'm not like, this is years later when Big Bang Theory was on. But I mean, like when you see how they represent female scientists, I mean, this is not real life. I mean, we're joking about how young I look and everything, but a lot of neuroscientists look just like me. Like I'm actually a typical one.
Right. Because you're a
cool
person
people.
that looks like a person. That's why.
Exactly. I mean, if you go in a lab, we're not all pocket protectors. Like, come on.
So to kind of showcase that was a goal.
Exactly. And it's funny because a lot of people, give me some flack about being on a reality show that's filmed 24/7 and not talking about cannabis for 3 months on there. I didn't use cannabis at the time, and I was working for Caltech, and you can't say certain things when you're trying to still like keep your job in academia. So
sure, or keep your job anywhere.
Exactly, and I was very cognizant of the fact that previous people had been on the show, and they record almost every word you say on that show. Like somebody transcribes because there's crazy nerds and stuff. So whatever you're saying is going to come back to your administration. So it was all about representing the university that I was in a positive light, and just staying away from some of those taboo type of things that just would have pissed them off.
Right.
So.
How do you think you did?
I think I behaved mostly, but probably due to the lack of alcohol on set, I think it probably would have gone a little crazy if there was more free flow of
So it's better. So you feel like you did all
yeah, no,
right.
I totally behaved on there.
How did you do as a contestant?
I did very well, actually. I was there on 66 days of the competition, about 2 days before the series ended, so I was fourth place.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I held my own, man.
What is the key takeaway that you can share with the rest of the world from being a contestant on a reality show?
I would say know what to do with your 15 minutes of fame. In my case, I try to use my platform for social good, and be able to highlight certain things, be able to, use my platform to help mentor women, that were interested in science, and be able to say, positive things, and, and then eventually use that to that social media platform, et cetera, to go, advocate for cannabis access. But make sure that you do something positive with it. Don't make it all about you. Don't make it like people are like, oh yeah, I was offered sex tape opportunities, like all weird sorts of things. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm a scientist. Like, it's hilarious. But
also, are you watching what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, are you listening to what I'm saying?
I know, exactly. But there's people that just, fame is a drug, and so they just go for it.
Right. So as far as Caltech, how did you use the platform of the show? What was the next step from Caltech?
So actually, it was interesting at Caltech. I had one of my students had killed themselves, so it was actually like a lot of tragedies while I was gone. So I was like, okay, I think it's just not right here, so I'm going to move on to the corporate world. I ended up doing nutraceutical formulation and marketing as chief scientist of a big company that worked with a lot of celebrities. So it was funny. It was like formulating celebrity products.
Okay.
Not exactly where I expected to be, but actually that background was very helpful for understanding how to formulate products in the cannabis industry, because a lot of people don't understand compliance. They don't understand what you can and cannot say in marketing. I mean, if you look in the industry and you're like, these people with CBD products are like, it cures cancer, PTSD, and you're like, and there's 5 milligrams of this substance. You're like, you need at least 200 for this disease, and this, how much for this? It's just, it's absurd.
Let's take it easy with using the word cure. For now,
exactly. I mean, when you don't want the FDA, the FTC to shut everyone down. I mean, when people say things like, "Oh, there's snake oil products on there," like, well, you guys know who to call for compliance. There's lots of compliance people out there, so you're literally just trying to take an inch and run with it. I mean, the people that are doing it know that they're doing it wrong. You can't be an idiot in this industry. I mean, thankfully there's so many, roads have already been paved. It's like, okay, nutraceuticals. Well, you're going to make a cannaceutical, so just understand and talk to people that done nutraceuticals. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
It's very black and white.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, it's just funny taking some of that experience. It's just funny. So in the cannabis science world, right? It was just funny. I had a conversation with another neuroscientist who's also in the cannabis industry. There's not many of us, but the ones that understand pharmacology have all jumped on the cannabis bandwagon. But talking about, it takes, a mediocre scientist, average, in academic world, and then you take them to the cannabis industry, and they're an excellent scientist because there are so few legit scientists in our industry.
Without question.
Yeah, we need to recruit some over to our field ASAP because there's a lot of shoddy science happening.
Well, let's kind of get to the Impact Network. The book, though, when did you write that book? I would imagine it was after the nutraceutical company, yeah?
Yes, exactly. So that'll be coming out in summer of this year.
Oh, that's not out yet?
No, it's not out yet.
Okay. That's why I haven't read it.
No, yes. Yeah. Yes, Vitamin Weed will be coming out in the summer.
All right, what's that about?
So that's basically sort of the first easy to understand plan of, okay, how do I use cannabis? How can I prepare my body for this? So just like weight loss or any other, big shift in lifestyle, I mean, you really have to prepare your body for cannabis, especially if you're trying to treat a chronic disease, right? So we basically have a plan where it's, how to eliminate things from your diet and lifestyle that are not good and that would actually harm the, your endocannabinoid system.
Such as
so many different things. I mean, you have medications that actually downregulate your endocannabinoid receptors, foods that do the same thing. I mean, there's an entire list of things.
Give me one food to avoid, just out of it. You know what I mean? Just to kind of paint that picture for us.
One food to avoid.
I would imagine pizza's not good for me.
Well, anything that increases inflammation, right? So you've got milk. I mean, you've got
sodium-based things.
Yeah, neurotoxins. I mean, this is a huge thing that you sort of hear like in the woo-woo world, right? When people are talking about autism and things like that. But these are actual real problems. So neurotoxins are things like the fake sugars, right? That or MSG, monosodium glutamate, right? These are things that actually cause your brain cells to be hyperexcitable. And so if you're trying to help protect your neurons, help build a healthy endocannabinoid system, which is part of your nervous system, you definitely don't want to be making all your cells sick. So removing basically what are toxins in your diet can help your body then respond to cannabis when you're ready for it.
Look at that. Look at that. And then you're writing that now? Is that or is that done?
No, it's in editing. So.
It's in editing. Yeah. Okay. And I guess I'm supposed to ask who's publishing it, or does that not matter anymore?
Yeah, no, we're self-publishing until somebody picks it up. It's funny in the publishing world, right? It's a lot like music industry now, where you have people self-releasing albums because I mean that's how the industry has just moved. You know, everyone takes their slice until the author has nothing.
Right.
So for us, basically with the profits from the book, there's a huge chunk that's actually going back to Impact Network to fund research. So the more people we can get that book out to and understand how to treat themselves with cannabis and actually heal their body, which is something their doctor is not helping them with. No doctor wants to help the patient help themselves, and that's what we're here for.
Right, exactly. And thank you. So let's now talk about the Impact Network. When did you start it, and where is it now? But first, give us what it is. What's the mission?
Sure. So IMPACT actually stands for Improving Marijuana Policy and Accelerating Cannabinoid Therapeutics. So the whole point is that right now there's no information that you can trust on cannabis or on how effective any of the medications are. There is some research that's being done, but it's not being communicated correctly, right? For example, just to say this, most people don't even understand that there's human clinical trials right now for using CBD to treat heroin addiction. That's pretty awesome and pretty powerful, right? But scientists don't have publicists, so some of this amazing work is just not getting out there in the news, and people don't understand that, hey, there's certain applications for cannabinoids that go beyond epilepsy, that go beyond cancer. So part of our mission is to drive awareness of research that's already going on, and also fund new research. I mean, there's so many applications for cannabis, autoimmune disorders. I mean, if you look in Colorado, there's $8 million that went towards new studies for basically, there's one studying chronic pain, there's one studying epilepsy, there's Sue Sisley's study with veterans and PTSD.
Right.
So there's some great projects going on, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, literally there's over 130 cannabinoids in cannabis. I mean, we need to know what each of them does. We need to know the applications for each disease. We need to know what existing treatments, how effective they are for some of these diseases. I mean, there's so much that needs to be done, and unfortunately the government isn't throwing the money at that.
No.
Here's $3 million total to study the positive effects of cannabis. By the way, that happened in December. It's like, yay, they finally acknowledged, it might be good
it's
for
a
pain
possibility.
treatment.
Right.
But that's nothing. That's literally, maybe you'll fund like 2 studies.
Right.
Like, that's it.
At best.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, when people talk about, funding cannabis research, it's funny. You ever talk about cancer research and you see the pink ribbon, right? You're like, oh, let's support breast cancer. And you buy your pink ribbon stuff, your pink NFL jersey, and you find out that none of the money actually went to breast cancer research. And the research that goes to, not a dime of it goes to cannabinoid medicine research for breast cancer. And we know that cannabis is helpful for breast cancer. So the whole idea is, why don't we help people fund research that reflects their values? If you're a cannabis-friendly patient and you want to give back and help fund research that shows, hey, cannabis is good for breast cancer, or these are the best products, or this is how long you live with cannabis versus traditional medications. Well, sorry, but the Breast Cancer Society is not going to be doing that research. Right. So that's where we stepped up, and we realized no one was fundraising for cannabis research.
So if I'm listening, how can I kind of get my funds to you to make that happen?
Okay. So you can go to www.theimpactnetwork.org. That tells you, what we do. There's a donate page on there and ways to get involved, whether it's volunteering, whether it's attending some of our seminars here in Denver that are live streamed as well.
How do you distribute those funds? What is going on?
Yeah. So at the end of the year, we're actually going to, once we raise our seed fund, we're going to be distributing the funds through a request for proposals from researchers. So basically what we do, instead of just giving money to every single project out there, we're going to look at, how valid are these research studies? What's the impact on them? How many people will this help? And secondly, we're actually doing our own study in conjunction with the University of Colorado. Once it gets through the final hoops of the human, clinical research approval through the IRB process. But what we're going to be doing is called a CMED study, so a cannabinoid medicine efficacy data set. So we're going to be collecting a huge cohort of patients through mobile health software, and we're going to be able to actually use that data and have breast cancer researchers plug in, addiction researchers, whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to be able to look at a huge population of cannabis users and non-cannabis users too, because we have to have that internal control group, right?
Yeah.
And these patients are self-medicating, so we don't have to ask approval from NIDA to say, hey, we need you to give us some really bad weed to give to these patients 5 years from now.
Right.
They're already using in legal states like Colorado, so we can actually study their use. It's self-reported, so it's not completely optimal, but what it does actually provide is pilot data.
Right.
So that, somebody that's studying, for example, Crohn's disease can go and say, hey, there's 500 patients using this for Crohn's disease. Some of them use flower, some of them use tincture. What is the best? What dosage works best? And how does it compare to traditional medications? Are there any bad side effects? Not every medication works. Not every treatment is the best for each patient. And, for some patients and some diseases, maybe traditional medications are the best. We're open to whatever outcome is there. We just want the data so we can help doctors make their best decisions, researchers make the best decisions.
Please let us have the data. We promise to tell you everything that it says.
Exactly. So the good thing is that cannabis patients are really excited and they want to help, and it's sort of like data sharing. I know sometimes patients in other states, like illegal states, are like, oh no, if I share data, like the police will come after us. There's definitely documents that we get to help protect, the privacy of our patients, because that's our number one concern is that, if you're sharing for the purposes of helping, create better medications and better treatments, that your data is private and cannot be picked apart by any agency.
Yeah. When do you find out from the university about when it's a go? Do you know?
April.
April.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yes. Oh my goodness. There are so many exciting things that are going to be happening, and being able to talk to some of these other agencies and trying to figure out, what are the little pieces of red tape that we can start pulling apart to help really speed up research here? I mean, for example, I sat in on a meeting on Friday for the committee that actually doled out, the grants to Colorado researchers. And it was just funny. Listen to this. So if you are in a hospital and you're a cannabis patient, you're allowed to, if your caregivers are, if you're, an adult, you can give yourself the cannabis. But if you're in a cannabis research study and it's done on the University of Colorado property, it is illegal, or according to them, for the patient to administer cannabis themselves. So they basically have to off campus administer it to them to themselves and then get on campus for a blood draw or something like that. And the reason why they say that a patient can administer it in a hospital but not as part of a research study is because they're so scared that they'll lose federal funds for education.
Right.
Why don't we just pass a bill that says, if you will not lose
that's how
your
Sue
funding?
That's how Sue got fired. I mean, that exact way.
Exactly. So we really need to start, stop complaining about some of these issues and say, what is the exact solution for this? Fund this, push this, just like, there was a bill that actually removed federal funding from braiding, from the DOG doing raids in states where, cannabis is legal. So why can't we have that same protection for universities so that the research can move forward? It doesn't make sense. Like, literally, we cannot produce valid results when we have patients feeling like criminals to participate in a research study.
Right.
It's insane.
Yeah. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Speaking of tips of the iceberg.
Exactly. And that's here in Colorado,
Yeah.
a completely legal state. You would not think it is as backwards as it is, but literally everyone's hands are tied.
Speaking of Colorado not being perfect, PTSD is not a recognized condition. It's so there's work to be done, Dr. Ross, and we're happy that you're doing it. How about that?
Thank you so much. I mean, it's hard rolling up our sleeves, but as we move forward, we can use all the help we can get. So if you want to get involved, please go to our website and tell us how you can help.
All right, so we've got 3 final questions for you. I'll tell you what they are, and then I'll ask you, what has most surprised you in cannabis? What has most surprised you in life? And then on the soundtrack of Michele's life, what is one song or one track that must be on there? So what has most surprised you in cannabis, taking the first things first?
Wow, that one's interesting. This one's hard. I need a little pause here.
That's fine.
What's most surprised me in cannabis? Actually, I think the fact that when I found out that women are actually more predominantly CEOs in this industry, that was sort of funny because I never really thought that, because most leadership positions in every other industry are dominated by men. And so to find out this is an industry that's really based on helping people and helping health, and the fact that it's sort of dominated by women who, by their very nature as mothers and caretakers, really care. It's really amazing to see women be able to flourish in this industry and help each other out. And that's like one of the things that I'm excited about. Women grow, we help each other.
Totally.
And it when women feel excluded in other industries, we're here and we're thriving. So if you don't like the industry you're in, come join cannabis.
There you go. Besides that, I mean, and maybe not just female scientists, how do you think the industry can attract more scientists? What is the trick, do you think?
Okay. So attracting scientists is really hard when you have scientists that are dependent on federal money or on university policies, right? Everyone's scared that they start, doing certain research that your university will axe them, like sue, right? So it's still, if we get those policies that are in place to protect the universities and the researchers that are doing that research from termination just for the fact that they're dealing with Schedule I drugs, right? I could get heroin from the United States government and not be kicked out of my lab, but yet there's still stigma associated with cannabis. We need to fund fellowships for students, whether they're PhD students, MD students, et cetera, to go study cannabinoid medicine so that they grow up to be, the professors and, the PIs of tomorrow, and reduce that stigma. That's one way we do it.
So just do it from within. Just grow them ourselves, basically.
Exactly. There's lots of capable people. If you give them the money, they will study, that field. So let's do it.
All right. What has most surprised you in life?
I would say that life is not fair, and I would say this is something that we didn't get to speak of at all.
Well, let's do it now, because you're talking about the mental illness.
Well, not the mental illness.
Oh, no.
No. Life is not fair, right? So I grew up my whole life thinking, say, law enforcement was here to serve and protect, and having been on the end of being raided in Los Angeles for cannabis that wasn't being grown at my home in a lab that wasn't there,
Back up and tell that whole story.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So life is not always fair. I was in Los Angeles in 2013 when I got raided by the Los Angeles PD, and they booked me and my husband for possession of concentrated cannabis as well as conspiracy charges. Basically, due to a illegal search on our home. There was no search warrant or anything. They literally came in, said that they were looking for a kidnapper, and just arrested us and searched our home.
By saying they were looking for a kidnapper, that gains them entry.
Yeah, that gains them entry. It's really hard to sue the LAPD. I mean, they'll find some reason that they can say, oh, your house smelled like pot, that's why we came in, or something.
That's not probable cause, by the way. But anyway.
I know that's not a probable cause, but literally, it's really hard to fight the system there. I mean, I like to go to Los Angeles. I don't really want to be run out of town every time I come in, unfortunately.
Right.
And I will be doing a patient support group there in April. So I definitely, don't want to
ruffle feathers.
Exactly. Oh, you were run over by a police car, right?
So, but you got...
That's not a joke.
No.
It's scary.
What do you mean?
No. No, I mean, when you're an advocate and you really stand out and say things like, for example, I use my social media platform to talk, on Twitter about some of the injustices that were going on, and then, you have law enforcement sort of harassing you. So, some places, law enforcement and the government fights fair, and some they don't. So, I mean, that's Los Angeles. Everyone knows, like there's certain cities where the police departments are a little bit more aggressive in what they do, like Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's one of those places where I realized it was really hard to fight the system and fight for patient access and research, and do my work really in Los Angeles. And the best, outcome of that was just to move to Denver, where it's completely safe, completely legal. I have law enforcement asking me for advice here. I talk to government. So, I mean, why fight, sort of, bang your head against the wall? It's not fair. It's not right that I couldn't do the work that I wanted to do in Los Angeles. But at the end of the day, if moving here was the best way to help patients, then goddamn it, I'm so happy I'm here in Denver.
And thanks for being here in Denver. Let's because we did not get to your family and mental illness. You had mentioned it. Let's actually talk about it. What are we talking about?
I don't really want to talk about my parents too much, just because they do listen. And when you have problems, it's not good to hear them being talked about on the radio. So I will talk about my brother, though. He was diagnosed with bipolar, and then died of alcohol and drug overdose about maybe a week later.
I'm sorry.
So it was just funny. So it was hard for me, growing up my whole life. I was the oldest of four, so I always taught my brothers and sisters. I was like, hey, there are good drugs, there are bad drugs. Don't drink yourself to death. Don't do heroin, for example. There's some drugs that are, won't get you addicted as fast. So I was like, if you're going to experiment, go smoke some weed,
Right. Yeah.
And then to find out that my brother, had died in college of a alcohol and then, little drug overdose, it was just really just painful. And I know that was associated probably with his shame of actually being diagnosed with mental illness. And I know, it gets really hard. Sometimes, suicides and things of that nature are, masked by, drug and alcohol overdoses. So I can't be there to, go back in time and say what he did or why he did it. But I do know that dealing with the stigma of having a mental illness diagnosis can actually lead to depression, further depression and further problems, and then even suicide, which is a huge rampant problem in our country.
Yeah. So that is further to your life is not fair.
Yeah, but it's funny. You can either take that and be sad and upset and angry that you lost someone for the rest of your life, or you could turn that into, I actually got a tattoo on my leg that says live for the moment, because it was one of those things that he taught me. He, at the time of his life when he was in college, he was having more fun and just having more experiences than I ever did. I was always like, get results, like work 20 hours a day. And I had spent so much, trying to like heal the world. One person cannot heal the world. So you got to realize, you can't take on the burdens of the entire universe. You can do your part, but at the end of the day, be a human, explore, have fun, make friends. Don't just be committed to solving problems, because the problems will never end, unfortunately. You can only do so much by yourself. So remember to live and be happy. We fight the good fight here, and taking his time to appreciate the roses, to get out and say hello to people is super important. So he helped me take the time to actually say, life is short, life is precious. Take a minute to enjoy it.
I love it. That's perfect.
Thank you.
So a final question is on the soundtrack of Michelle's life. What's one song that's got to be on there?
So I'm a huge fan of Modest Mouse. So I'm probably not going to say the title right, because it's as long as the university I went to, but I think it's People as Places That We Wanted to Go.
Okay.
But it's really about, some people want to travel the world and everything, but there's other people who are like, it doesn't matter where you are in the world as long as you're with them. It's like, being with the people that make you feel alive is really important.
There you go. So yeah, home is where the heart is type of
yes, exactly. In a little bit more poetic way.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. said better in a more 21st century rhyming couplet. Dr. Michele Ross, what a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. This was a lot of fun.
All right. And there you have Dr. Michele Ross. Very much appreciate her time. We just brushed by mental health there at the end, and that's certainly something that I want to talk to her again about and investigate generally in a deeper way. Anyway, check us out on Twitter at Can Economy, Facebook, same handle. Happy to be on the Cannabis Radio Network and Sexpot Comedy Co-op.